Hello, welcome. How are you doing? I'm very well, thank you. Would you like a reading? Okay. So last time I did this, I tried to do full general readings, and honestly, it got out of hand pretty quickly. So I'm going to do 3 card readings for now, but we can maybe go on for some additional clarification if the line doesn't pile up. So let's go ahead and do a 3 card reading. We're going to do your current situation. We're going to do what's challenging you or crossing you and your advice for the current situation. Okay. So, current situation, you have the Judgment card. So, there's a little bit of a judgment, right? So something is come to light. There's going to be some assessment of the situation that's going on. There's a kind of end of the cycle, and it maybe has weighed heavy on your mind, or perhaps it's about to. But in one way or another, things are coming full circle. Things are coming to an end, and so all is going to be out in the open. So what's crossing you is this need to feel like you can get away with something. This guy's pretty sneaky here. He's trying to sneak off with 5 swords, and he's leaving 2 behind because he's in such of a rush. So this is maybe feeling like, I don't know, someone is out to get you. This is kind of like someone's coming for you. And this is what's affecting you. This is what the challenge is. So the advice for the current situation, you have the Emperor in the reverse. So this means that sometimes people are a little bit overly domineering. People are a little bit too quick to assert their authority. Hi, Grace, how are you? And this can mean that people don't really have as much power over you as they try to act. They're trying to intimidate you. So it's kind of a message to step back a little bit, relax. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And they're not really, they don't have as much power to, it's not the end of days as it sometimes feels. So if you kind of just approach the situation with, humoring this person, allowing them to feel like they are important instead of just resisting everything they have to say, that's going to help you out quite a bit. And even if you don't like what they have to say, or you're not really going to take it to heart, if you at least hear them out and go through the motions of letting them assert this sort of dominant energy, things that kind of go a little bit smoother. And, there's limits to that. And sometimes it's a situation where you just need to remove yourself from their presence if you have the ability. A lot of times with this Emperor energy, you kind of don't. So it may be that you just have to figure out the best way to sort of keep the peace, Does that seem fairly applicable? Glad you enjoyed it. So I am doing these nice little short and sweet 3 card readings, hoping that this won't get too crazy or too out of hand. But also, if you have any general questions about spirituality, metaphysics, even science, I am here. So anyone who would like a reading, just let me know. Let's see. Absolutely, absolutely. So let's get you, let's do it a little bit different here. So to avoid energy contamination, go ahead and pick a deck, if you would, for me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 2. Okay. That one fell. All right. So, situation. What's crossing you? And your advice for the current situation. Okay. So, situation, you have the Knight of Coins in the reverse. So, it may be that you've been spending a little bit rashly lately, or your financial situation is just a little bit out of control, right? So the Knight of Coins has like a very quick energy, a very it's not quite as stable and calculating as the Queen or the King would be. It's a little bit more straight to the point. So it comes out of this desire to make things happen, right? And in the physical realm specifically, using your financial success or something like that. But in this kind of situation, it's kind of gone off in a little bit of a different way than you wanted it to. It's maybe not worked out quite the way that you needed it or felt that you needed it to. So what's crossing you, the situation to be overcome here, is the Six of Swords. One moment, let me let the kitty out. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is a painful transition. This is something that you kind of need to go through. It's for your own good, but you don't really want to. It is, it can be moving, or maybe moving back home, that kind of thing. Just somewhere where you're kind of forced into the situation, but I think you overall realize that it's for the best for you to kind of go through this transition, but it doesn't necessarily make it feel any better, right? So the advice for you here is the King of Cups in the reverse. And King of Cups is kind of he's an emotional person, but he kind of keeps his emotions maintained. He manages them. So in the reverse, this is kind of telling you that maybe you need to get just a little bit more. You're going through a situation that's meant to kind of temper your ability to do this. There's a little bit of a lack of keeping those emotions completely under control. Maybe you're getting a little bit too anxious or a little too worried and things like that. And so the whole kind of point of this transition, we all call these experiences to ourselves in one way or another in life. And the point of this experience for you, the reason for it, is to teach you that sort of emotional stability, right? So there's this test that you have to go through, but if you kind of maintain your emotional state and kind of just go through it with a little bit of dignity and tact, everything will turn out fine and it'll be for the better. But it's just going to kind of test your emotions a little bit, So how do you feel about that? Mm-hmm. Great. I'm glad it worked for you. And while there's not a ton of people in here, if you had any other specific concerns or things like that, I don't mind pulling a few cards. Okay. Let's go ahead and set this up for the next reading. Yeah, I have felt that kind of the same thing has been going on in my life a little bit recently, where sometimes you have to throw up your hands and say, like, what? Why? Why am I going through this? But it's funny how if I really take time to step back and wonder what is the reason for this, usually it becomes apparent that there really is something that I'm meant to learn, or some reason that the transition is a good thing. And it sucks sometimes, because sometimes you really try hard to live your life in such a way that you exclude certain emotions. And unfortunately, it becomes a lesson in balance, because those emotions, all emotions that you can feel, are a part of life, a part of a whole life. So it's about sort of finding a balance between them, instead of just, pushing one of them away completely. There was a situation where at my work, I kind of just wanted to, yeah, you can't, yeah, you don't grow. Yeah, so a situation at work, I'm very much averted to this sort of professional game that people play, where everything is just this power play. And yeah, I make it fairly known that I like to just be straight up, and I like for the people to be straight up with me, my bosses and whatnot. And in the end, I felt like that was happening, but then I kind of found out, well, people had been a little bit shady or sneaking around and whatnot. And the overall situation just had me feeling like down. I'm like, what, why? I try to be so plain about what I expect and all that. But through the other side, that anger turns out to be kind of a benefit for me, because it turns out people don't want to give you what you deserve unless you kind of demand it, or if they think they need to placate you. So it's, in my best interest to be a little bit upset about some things, even though I try to maintain a nice sunny disposition, right? So yeah, growth, it requires sometimes emotions, things that you don't really necessarily want, but they're good for you. If anyone else has just joined, if you would like a simple reading. Yeah, Grace, and people, there's, things are cliche for a reason. People say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? Well, and that can, some people think it's naive. People fall into this sort of a cynical attitude where, no, not everything has a reason and all that. And they think it's kind of foolish or deluding yourself. But really, if you step back and look at it in the grand scheme of things, it's the only attitude that really does you a benefit, no matter what's going on. Because if you look at things as breaking you down, all it does is get you upset, right? It doesn't help you. All it does is just make you, it makes you get down. And if you kind of flip the script on that and say, well, they say that the main difference between really successful people and people who don't have success is it really comes down to the way they view stress. Is stress something that's breaking you down, or is it giving you an opportunity to rise above, to move forward, And if you can kind of embrace that more positive aspect, then really the sky is the limit. And it might not prevent bad things from happening to you, but it definitely gives you the best chance of getting through it with the most positive outcome. As a person who is interested, studies spirituality and all these things, I was the kind of kid who absolutely could not take, because I say so as a reason why I should do something or why I should follow something. I never wanted for someone just to tell me, don't question this. And so I really had to get to a point where I had a broad enough understanding of the world. So with science and math and all these academic endeavors, I had to kind of get a big enough understanding of it to understand how this was work, how these things would work. And it didn't bring me away from spiritual. Maybe it did at first, but what eventually did was it kind of pointed me back to spirituality, because you start to learn that a lot of things that nobody really ever gives you a reason for are actually helpful in the long run. And there's a reason that they have existed for, thousands of years. And granted, science hasn't been around that long, but it informs the spirituality with me. I feel like you don't have to choose one or the other. Really, what you do should make sense to you. It shouldn't just be superstition or something like that. One example, yeah, you don't have to follow blindly. One example, when I was a kid, they told me I grew up in a Christian household, and they told me that it was important to pray before you eat, right? And I thought, I'm imagining what God would be like. And okay, so this all powerful person, does everything. He's responsible for everything. He's everywhere. He knows everything. But he wants me to thank him before I eat every time. I was like, why? That doesn't make sense. That sounds like you made that up. So I really kind of rejected that for a long time. And, my parents would always get on to me because I would just go straight to eating before saying grace. And then, I went and studied biology. And in anatomy, I found out, you have two nervous systems that exist side by side. You have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system is sort of the fight or flight. When you're in a stressed state, it changes your body physiology a little bit. It shuts down your digestion. It raises your heart rate. It speeds your breathing up, and it prepares you to get into this sort of tense state where you're going to defend yourself or run. And it is opposed to the parasympathetic nervous system, which kind of does the opposite. It calms you down and it speeds up your digestion and all that. And it turns out that you can really turn on your parasympathetic nervous system. You can activate your digestion by concentrating on feelings of gratitude. The feeling of gratitude itself is a chemical in the brain. It is certain neurotransmitters which release a relaxing and calming effect on your body, which aids in your digestion. So it's not so much really that the advice was necessarily given because God wants everybody to be thankful for every time they eat, but it's literally good for you to be grateful. Yeah, and what I started to find is that spirituality or religion all over the world is imbued with these sort of wisdoms, which are a little bit hidden. And it's like you can get hung up on the literal interpretation of things and kind of miss how things are really beneficial for you. So I've always been really interested in that. It's wonderful to kind of get to an intersection of spirituality and physical science. To me, that's really cool. So if anyone is just joining, if you would like a 3-card reading, please just ask and we'll get to it for you. Please also check out my channel. I have a lot more detailed general readings and love readings and pick a card readings, all kinds of things. I do monthly general readings for each sign. I like to do readings on full moons and new moons. All kinds of great stuff. Let's do a little reading for myself while we wait. So we can use this as an example. 5 of Swords. So there's a little bit of a conflict, especially in the reverse. This has been a little bit of a whatever the opposite of a meeting of the minds is. So this is a disagreement between me and somebody else, and it has been a little bit tense, and it's based on our own individual perspectives. It's not that we are necessarily mortal enemies or anything like that, but we don't see eye to eye on a situation. So that's the current situation. And what's crossing me or influencing me is the Justice card. So and it's a little bit unfair because I know what I'm going through, but trying to keep it as objective as possible. I don't feel as though there's been justice in this situation. I don't feel that there's a balance. I feel like they've kind of tried to get the better of me, that they have tried to take advantage of me, right? So that's the Justice crossing me there. Now, my advice for the current situation, this is the Chariot, but it's in the reverse. And so this kind of usually tells me to take a step back and look at what I've accomplished and get into a little bit more of a mindset of knowing what I deserve and getting ready for the sort of next venture in my life. Whereas I'm a little too focused on the situation at hand. Really, it's time to be kind of moving beyond that situation. And I've just not really been doing that. I've just been sort of stuck just beating my head against a wall instead of opening the door. So, yeah, well, that makes sense. I knew that. But, now I have a weekend to prepare my thoughts, so we'll see what happens. Thank you. This is the Golden Art Nouveau. It has a nice little foil backing on each card. It's very pretty. I love it. Have a couple others. This one is nice and flashy, so I use it a lot. We also have this new one. This is the Light Seers Tarot. Has a little bit more contemporary artwork on it. Very pretty cards here as well. Some of them are quite striking. Yes, bright, saturated colors. It's wonderful. Hello. Would you like a reading? Then I have... Thank you. I also have this one. This one's my favorite one and my oldest one. The Paulina Cassidy, Joie de Vivre. It was really, I think it was designed for children. It's a little bit more whimsical. But I love it. It has a really positive, kind energy to it. Tarot cards, can be a little bit harsh sometimes. They can kind of call you out. And so I really love that this deck kind of makes it a little bit more subtle or friendly, that kind of thing. Soft feel. Yeah, that's it. Okay, well, would you like to pick one of these decks there and give you a nice little 3-card reading? This will be deck number 1, deck number 2, deck number 3. How's okay, number 3. Okay, let's give it a little shuffle here. These are very thick cards. They're a little bit more difficult to shuffle. Get a few reverse meanings in here. All right. Ooh, one jumped right on out there. So okay. High Priestess. So current situation, this is an opportunity for you to get kind of more in touch with your intuition, with trusting yourself, and with regards to your husband and that kind of thing. It's not giving me such a clear answer about that, but what it is saying is that what you need to focus on in this situation is connecting more with your inner power, your inner self, and to not be so, I don't want to use the word needy. That's a little bit of a strong energy here. But what's going on is that you need to sort of gain a little bit of independence in yourself. And I think that whether that leads you away from that husband or toward him, it could go either way. But I think it'll be a positive either way, because what's going on is I think he needs you to be more independent and more self-reliant. And you also need that for yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? So there's a need for you to become a little bit more of a whole individual, I think, on your own. And I think that going through that process is only going to benefit you. So either, well, let's move on a little bit here. So what's crossing you, or the influencing force here, is the Page of Cups. So the Page of Cups is this, it's a new kind of, it's an energy of the sky is the limit. It's, I like this card because it actually in the corner here has a little flying pig. So this is the kind of feeling that, like, well, people say when pigs fly. Well, this guy kind of believes that they might be able to. This is a really joyful, optimistic idea. This is feeling as though things could definitely all work out for the best. And that's what's influencing you, crossing you. So it could be that this is maybe distracting you from this quest of self-reliance a little bit. And it's kind of making you feel like you're reaching out to external circumstances for that sort of emotional fulfillment, when in reality, you have to bring that emotional fulfillment yourself. You have to find it yourself, and you have to stand on it firmly, right? So the advice for the current situation, you got Temperance in the reverse. So this is saying that, you think that some of these things are going to be breaking you down. Maria, I will get you a nice reading in just a second. But so the Temperance in the reverse is saying you think some things are breaking you down. You think it's a bad process. But what's happening is it's kind of like, when you temper something, like you're tempering a sword, you hit it over and over, you heat it up and you hit it over and over with a hammer. And you would think, oh, well, that's awful. But what it does is it makes the sword all the much stronger. So what the situation is moving you toward is a little bit more of a resilience, a little bit more of a balance and an evenness. And that's something that's going to be necessary for you to really achieve what your ultimate ambitions are. You're going to have that little bit of temperance. It's like kind of a reaction that occurs, right? It's a little bit violent sometimes, but what happens on the other end of that is that you are more matured and you are more capable of handling the things that you want out of life. And it's said that you can't really increase your capacity for pleasure unless you also increase your capacity for pain, right? The two, they go together. So this is the process that you're going through. And, as far as whether it leads back to your husband or not, I think that you're being asked to shift your focus away from whether or not that will occur and focusing on how you can have faith in yourself that everything will be okay regardless. And that gives you the best chance at a positive outcome with your husband. Does that make sense? Maria, if you'd like to choose. Three, okay. When you're going to be mummy? Hopefully not the Egyptian sort of mummy. I don't predict people's death. No, I'm just kidding. I know what you mean. Seriously, though, I do refuse to make any sort of predictions on a person's mortality. To me, that might as well be considered a psychic attack, and anyone who does it either doesn't understand the nature of reading a person, or they have malicious intent. So be on the lookout for that. I had somebody who was doing some palm readings at work and was just throwing out, well, you're probably going to live till your 60s or 50s and whatnot. It was a very good clue that I shouldn't trust that guy. And it turns out I was right. So it's not a nice thing to do. It introduces anxiety and fear and negative emotions. And I like to say that the only real kind of prophecy is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So don't put that idea in people's heads. That's not right. Okay, so this is your current situation and what's crossing you and your advice for the situation. Okay, so King of Wands in the reverse. So there is some action that needs to occur here. Obviously, if you want to be a mummy, right? So there is, and you got the Ace of Wands for your advice too. There's a little bit of a need for you to focus more on how you're going out and carrying yourself and what you're, lots of action. Hopefully, right? Hopefully it's not too little of an action. But anyway, so there's that's what you're needing to focus on a little bit here. So what's crossing you is this Two of Pentacles. That's kind of a work-life balance thing. So could be that the financial situation, you probably have it under control for the most part, but there might not be a whole lot of excess or a lot of extra, which is kind of making you devote your life a little bit more to that side of things, and we can call it the extended nesting, right? So I experienced this. I have a daughter on the way, and I didn't feel ready for it until I had, a house and a relatively stable career and all this. And then once all that started to fall into place, oh, you're very welcome. But once all that started to fall into place, it was almost magically that it happened. And I don't want to get into too much detail, but there was very ample opportunity for it to occur many years. And it just so happens that it didn't until the time was right. So, these things kind of work themselves out, but it's mainly about this sort of work-life balance, I think. And so, if you want to put some more effort, look at ways for you to sort of shift the balance in your favor a little bit. Look for ways to devote more time into this King of Wands guy and bring action into your plan here. Make some moves, we'll put it that way. So your advice for the current situation is Ace of Wands. So a new action, a new direction. This is taking the reins a little bit instead of waiting for the situation to unfold. This is inviting a little bit of passion. She's got this nice little fire here burning in her. This is a nice passionate card. I think it's right up your alley. I think it's a great type of energy for you to embrace, where you just you get ready for it, and you are more willing than usual to follow some path of action. Be a little less reserved and a little bit more, let's go for it. Does that make sense for you? Time. Let's see. Well, there's more of that busy energy there. There's more of this, the candle's burning. So there is definitely I don't want to say too long. I also feel like it's pretty interesting that you've got The moon cycle here definitely has a lot to do with fertility. Yeah, it seems as though it's a little bit more in your court. It's good night, Grace. Thank you for watching. It's a little bit more in your court here, it seems. Let me draw one more here. Page of Swords. Yeah, there's a lot of busy energy. So it seems that it's almost like it could really be any time. It's just when you want it to occur or when you take the time to plan it out accordingly, I think it will. Are you having a particular kind of trouble that you're having difficulty with, or is it just really just wanting to know when it's going to occur? Are you already trying? We'll put it that way. No. Okay. So yeah, so it's really going to be up to you to decide when you want it, right? So you're the thing that decides when it's going to come in this situation. And I always like to clarify with people, when you ask a question about the future, it either will be need to meet the correct partner. Right. Yeah. And so I think that you're probably going to have to devote a little bit more energy to that aspect of your life here. Any idea when? I'm sorry. Let's see. Well, I mean, it looks like it's coming pretty soon. It does. It looks like, can't give you an exact date, but it does look like it's on the way. I mean, the Knight of Cups, here's this romantic energy coming at you. So it doesn't look like it'll be too long, but there is definitely, I like to tell people when I'm trying to predict something in the future, sometimes things are out of our control, and that's when more specific answers tend to crop up. But when you have free will. So when you have a lot to say in this situation, it's really going to point more back towards you and when it's time for you to make a decision. Old or young? Younger. Definitely younger. There's gonna. It's almost like an intoxicating energy of, starry-eyed, trust and faith, and I think it will be what is going to convince you that it's the right type of person. It's the optimism, the feeling that things can work out. Yes, Gianna, you may absolutely have a reading. Hope I said that right. You're very welcome. I'm sorry it wasn't more specific for you, but like I said, a lot of times the ball is very much in your court. So I don't like to try to put people in a box with these readings. I like to liberate as much as possible. And rather than tell you for sure how things are going to work out, I like to give you some choices, which give you a sort of a path forward. And you can kind of make decisions based on that and hopefully get more where you're wanting to go, So Gianna, if you would like to choose a deck. 1, 2, 3. One. Okay. My favorite. Now, And sometimes we fail. Because I was looking at the screen instead of the cards. So let's give it a little bit of side shuffle action. And let's put the ball in your court a little bit. So if you would choose a pile for me to draw off of. Number 2. Put 2 on the top. Current situation. Wonderful, wonderful. And what's crossing you? Oh, or influencing you. Either way. And advice. Okay, so current situation is pretty interesting. We have the Queen of Cups. So you're very good at you're keeping your emotions balanced, but you're very much feeling them. It's not that you're suppressing your emotions or feeling a little cold or something like that. You have a good emotional balance that's going on. And I have in another one of my decks, the Queen is kind of sitting halfway in the water, and so it's not as though the water's overtaking you, the emotions are overtaking you, but you're feeling them and they're serving you very well at this point. There's a balance going on, an internal stability with your emotions, despite the fact that what you might think of as negative emotions do exist. You're in a good place with them. And it may not always feel that way, but sometimes you have to kind of trust, you have to remember that all of those emotions, all of those negative things, anything you can feel is a good thing. It's a good thing for you to feel it. Life is, you wouldn't have the ability to feel those emotions if they didn't have some sort of a purpose. So that's pretty good, I think. What's influencing you? You have the Knight of Cups here. So Knight is this slightly less mature energy than you have. It's a little bit more of a romantic energy. This is somebody who is in the same suit. This is kind of an emotional person. They're not cold. They're not anything like that, but they can be sometimes even a little bit, I don't want to use the word like flighty, but they are a little bit more of a player sometimes. They let their emotions kind of run off with them. They get caught up in the heat of the moment, a little bit more passionate. So this is the kind of energy. And, with the Queen and Knight here, seems like there's maybe a little bit of a situation going on. So this is the dynamic between you. There's just a little bit less of an emotionally tempered energy coming about. What we have for your advice card is the Seven of Wands in the reverse. Seven of Wands indicates sometimes a need to lead others, a need to kind of bring someone forward to develop some character, to sort of rally the troops, that kind of thing. But in the reverse, it's maybe resisting this a little bit. There's kind of like, I don't want to be his mama. I don't want to be that kind of person that has to usher him into a new form of being. I've kind of experienced that. But the resistance here is, I understand it, because you are, being the Queen of Cups here, you're attracted to this sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? This like plot driven thing, this picture of how things are supposed to go, maybe this sort of free flowing environment or free flowing scenario, instead of it being forced or calculated or having to talk about things overtly. You like more subtlety and things like that. But what's going on here is that this person's a little bit less emotionally mature than you are. So, I mean, it's not that it's not imbalanced. It definitely could be really great, but it's going to require you to have a little bit of patience. And I think fundamentally, you're being asked to recognize that just because you have to do this a little bit every now and then doesn't mean that it's all the time. So don't turn your focus so much on having to be the bigger person or the adult or whatever. Don't turn your focus on having to be that leader quite as much, and instead kind of focus on the things that are making the situation great. And if I have to venture a guess as to why, it's probably because it's kind of maybe better than you think it is, right? So it's yeah, things timing is everything, right? So a lot of people run into soulmates and things like that, but at the absolute worst time, and it doesn't work out, and they don't get to be with that person. So this kind of seems like there's a little bit more of a good chance for that type of an energy. The timing's just off a little bit here. There's just a little gap. The Knight comes right before the Queen, so there's a little bit of a gap here. So try your best not to get too impatient with that. And how does that feel? Does that make sense or resonate? Fantastic. I don't know how I call it. Very immature. Yeah, but sometimes it probably yeah, I'm a Virgo too. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that Leo, that stubborn kind of peacocking energy sometimes. Yeah. And you're probably a little bit more sensible and reserved, but at the same time, it can be kind of like it can drive you nuts, but in a way that's kind of attractive. Yeah, it's a synergistic relationship. I think I've always felt that may not be the last relationship that you ever have. I hope it is. May not be, but guaranteed to cause some growth, guaranteed to be healthy in a sort of like emotional development aspect. And if not for you, for him. No, you're very welcome. Hope you got something out of that. Hey, Sherpa, how are you? Welcome back. Would you like one of my handy little 3-card readings? Oh, well, hi. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Trying to limit it to these 3-card readings this time because last time it got a little out of hand. My wife got a little upset. She was okay, but wasn't right of me to spend 4 hours reading the cards. Yes, Truth Seeker. Yes, you may. Which deck would you like? We have 1, 2, and 3. I like the name, Truth Seeker, too. It's very cool. Always remember, though, what you seek is seeking you. Yeah, thick cards and a little bit harder to shuffle like that. Will you reunite? Reunite. That seems to be a common theme. So, and I will tell you what I told the last person who asked me such a question. A lot of times in these situations, it's not purely external situations which determine the outcome. A lot of times it's dependent on your actions, whether you choose, choice is always a part of the situation. So whether you choose to act to go down one path or whether you choose to go down another gives you control over the outcome, right? So it really depends on how you handle the situation. But if you would go ahead and choose one of these piles for me to draw from, and we'll see if we can get you some guidance. The right, okay. So, current situation, the Lovers in the reverse. 9 of Wands. And the Hanged Man. So this is your situation, what's crossing you, and this is the advice for the current situation. So the Lovers in the reverse here. The Lovers are all about choice. They are very much involved with, people think of the Lovers as a wonderful relationship, this kind of thing. And a lot of people have the idea that's kind of a soulmate thing, something that just kind of comes out of nowhere and is something that happens effortlessly. But what the Lovers really represents is that choice, where it is to say that to sustain that type of a relationship, there's going to have to be a really conscious choice, and it's got to happen on both sides. So this situation, it's really both of you are going to have to work toward it, and you're going to have to work toward it really hard. What we see crossing you, the 9 of Wands here, this is determination. This is the kind of attitude that says, you know what, I want to do whatever it takes to make this work. It's about pushing all of the other factors aside and saying, one way or another, this is going to happen. This is the direction I choose. This is the direction I want to go. So, and this is a decision that is going to have to be made from both you and your husband. And it is, it's not easy. It's, you got to get down to the point of where you really understand why you want to be in the relationship, you want to be married, a lot. And people have different ways of looking at it. Some people are really just looking for a stable relationship in an emotional or physical type of scenario. They don't want to end up with STDs, but they are really just into it for just sex or that kind of thing. And other people, people like me, I'm a little different, where I kind of feel as though life in general, as you march toward the end of it, is a little bit scary, and it's a little crazy because, like, if you think about it, we all do it, but it's, none of us really knows what to expect. We have some ideas and we get a lot of comfort from people who tell us that they know what it's all about. But really, when it comes down to it, nobody does. Nobody really has it all figured out, and it's scary. So for me, the whole point is to develop a partnership where you can find that one thing that you can count on, that one thing. And the entire foundation of a relationship, to me, is trust. And I've also, if I'm frank, I've formulated that viewpoint out of seeing what kinds of relationships prosper and what kinds kind of don't. So I look for somebody who feels the same way that I do about it. That ultimately it should be a partnership of where you're basically holding each other's hands as you walk home, and it's all of the romance and excitement and all of that kind of stuff, all of that is wonderful. And I think that if you're going to have a relationship, you should have some of that for sure. But ultimately, if you don't have the trust, then it makes the relationship a little bit more short lived, right? It doesn't have this sort of feeling of longevity, of determination. And so this is what's really going to determine whether things work out for you or not. Is where are you focused? What is your ultimate aim in this relationship? Do you really think the sand? Same. Oh, yes. I was like, sand. What are you saying there? Yeah. So if that's the way that it is, it really, you're going to want to look at, first of all, does he feel the same way, or is he kind of just trying to have some fun, just trying to distract himself, right? Men are really bad about that these days. The culture that we live in, if you're not working 24/7, if you're not going towards something, if you're not improving, then you feel negatively about yourself. And if you lose money, it feels more painful than when you gain money, it feels pleasurable. So it's like you're always on this negative footing. And I think it's really sad. I think that the majority of men these days have been sort of separated from an entire aspect of their existence. And it's very sad. But, take a look and see if that's what's going on with you. And unfortunately, if he's not seeing it the same way that you are, it may work for a while. You really cannot understand him. Yeah, and I'm wondering if that's not a little bit of a sort of a fear of maybe confiding in a person. When you say a weirdo, um, it may be that he is just sort of in this defense mode the majority of the time, where it's like all kind of a strategy for getting through life. It's all about keeping people on their toes, and that's kind of what's worked for him. And maybe confiding and being tender, or that kind of a more intimate relationship has just been a little bit too scary for him. It's been hard for him to get there. So if that's the case, and it is sort of a defense mechanism that you're trying to work through here, um, I don't even have the strength card handy, and it probably won't be up here at the top, but I'd like to use it as a sort of, it's not even in this deck the way that I want it to be anyway. The strength card has a picture here we go, right there, of this very delicate lady who's got kind of her arms caressed around this lion. And you would think, oh, well, the lion is going to eat her up. But the idea here is that she provides the lion with something that it needs. And that is, a fellowship, compassion, and kindness. And by virtue of creating this sort of safe space for that lion, the lion gives her something she needs, which is, this protection, or, a form of companionship itself. It kind of reminds me of like a Beauty and the Beast situation. So that could be the kind of thing that you're going through, where it's like, you're trying to help draw this poor guy out of his shell a little bit. I don't know. But again, it's a beastly energy, so it's not always like you want to cuddle it. But what we have for your advice for the situation is the Hanged Man. Hanged Man, this is about surrender. It's kind of a weird artwork. People are always confused by this one. So the Hanged Man, it's like The idea is somebody kind of got caught in a trap or something. They're like hanging in limbo and there's nothing really they can do. But what happens, and that's not the most important aspect of it. What's important is the figure at some point just kind of gives up, just kind of like lets go of the situation, detaches from the outcome, and then something kind of funny happens. It's like in that, yeah, submission, yeah. And in that situation, something funny happens where they begin to realize that that's almost like the answer to everything. And it's kind of this really paradigm shifting enlightenment where if you can't control the situation, if you can't control the outcome, then why try? Why fight against it? It's like a recognition that we're all kind of flowing down the same stream. And some people are fighting against the stream, and some people have figured out how to use the stream, you know? So it's like instead of just fighting the inevitable, you allow it to occur and you kind of let that energy propel you forward. And that has a way of getting you where you wanted to end up, even if you didn't really understand where you wanted to end up at the beginning of the situation. So it could be that you're being asked to sort of let go of the situation here, let go of the outcome, and that could invite to you this sort of energy that maybe attracts him back to you, or if not, propels you to the next thing in your life that's going to serve you better. You don't want to waste a bunch of time if it's not really going to serve you in the long run. So either way, that seems to be the best way for you to carry forward, is to sort of make a little bit of peace with it, because you got to know that that peace is either going to be the sort of magnetism that is required to get him back on board with you, or that sort of aloof feeling. It's very magnetic to not care about the outcome. People crave that because it's sort of the reason this card is in the deck is it's a point in the spiritual journey that we all go through. And if you're progressing, if you're growing, you have to go through it at some point. So we all instinctively know that we have to get to that place where we're a little bit detached from the outcome and we're just kind of doing the best we can, right? So if you display that energy and he is sort of magnetically drawn to that next sort of lesson in life that he needs, it's gonna propel him along, or sort of get this whole situation moving a little bit more instead of being in a sort of stagnant place. But on the other hand, if he's not ready, if he's not going to be the person who you need him to be for your own fulfillment, then this is really just going to kind of speed the process of healing along and get you to a point where you're ready to move on to what else the universe has in store for you. So it's a win-win for you to follow this type of advice. Does that make sense? Yeah, again, and I people always want to know specific answers to the question, and you have to think about it like this. If I really just gave you, yes, this is what's going to happen and this is the time it's going to happen and that kind of thing, I would be stealing your power. You have power. You have, and I don't know if you've ever read anything about the law of attraction and the power that just your visualization and your mental focus, all of that has on the situation. But I'm not here to rob you of that power and to say that the future is set in stone and that you don't have a choice. I'm not here to do that. And there's a lot of tarot readers that I'm sure would love to do that. And, I won't say anything if I can't say anything nice, but let's just say I don't do that. My goal here is to empower you to be able to achieve what you want. And, It's more satisfying that way, right? If you're able to actually go after and achieve things based on your own power. So that's where my reading is focused and centered. I don't like telling people that it's got to work out one particular way. While we're waiting, if anybody else wants one, I'm going to go ahead and get some of these shuffled up ahead of time. Yeah, I'm not the puppet master. That is not what I like to do. And hello, Melissa. And I really kind of question the morality of taking that role, of trying to force people into a particular situation, you know. I'm here to give guidance, not an agenda. That's the way that I feel about it. Even advice, right? Because what are you going to do with me sitting here telling you how it's going to happen? You know, either it will or it won't, and you're just sitting on your hands waiting, right? I want to give you tools to be able to get the best chance at achieving what you want, because your action is the most important element in the situation. So if you would, Melissa, go ahead and pick a deck for me. 1, 2, 3. Number 1. Okay, good. We just shuffled that one up, so that's great. Save us some time. I'll divide this into 3 piles. Please choose a pile for me to draw from. You're very welcome. Pile number 2. Okay. So let's check out this here current situation. And what's crossing you? Ooh, and this is your advice for the current situation. Oh, this is a beautiful reading. I love this. Okay, so current situation, you have justice. Okay, so something is, you know, in general terms, this has been brought on by something else. So there's kind of an action and a reaction going on here, and it's a balance. You know, justice is sometimes not kind. Justice is blind, right? But so there's this sort of, this is the natural thing that occurs. And I think it's definitely asking you to sort of focus on the fact that sometimes we feel like things are happening to us in a cynical way, like why me, or like I'm being picked on, that kind of thing. Just kind of more draw your focus back to the fact that like everything has a sort of balance to it. Everything does have a sort of fairness, even if it's mathematical, right? So you things are happening in a way that has a sort of karmic tie, or and you know, the word karma actually means your doing, right? So that's the literal translation. So when people say it's your karma, it's not as though there's some magical force out there that says, okay, well, you know, you were a little bit mean to somebody sometime, so now we're going to be mean to you, or somebody else is going to be mean to you. It's not quite like that sort of intentional messing with scenarios type of an energy. But what it means is that if you are mean to somebody, that has a way of making them not want to be nice to you, right? That every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And so, yes, Mara, you absolutely may right after this one, or Myra, not sure. But yes, you can have a reading. But so this sort of karmic thing, this kind of karmic tie, this is the reason that it's said that, karma can go beyond just your life and into your previous lives. Well, one of the ways that I like to visualize how that works is, if your parents were a little bit on the lazy side, for example, and didn't do a lot of preparation, you might have grown up with less opportunities, or maybe it wasn't your parents' fault. That's just an example, but that is to say, things sometimes don't feel fair, but they are fair if you take a step back and look at things in the grand scheme, right? So, and that's great. The good news with that card is that if you take the right steps, then you will call forward that good karma to yourself. And it's not as if, it's going to always work wrong for you. It goes both ways. So while things have happened for a reason, maybe sometimes it's not in the best sort of way, they also happen for a reason in the good way. So if you stay steadfast and kind of focus on your path and what you're wanting to accomplish, justice does actually work in your benefit. Now, that's the current situation. So let's move on here to what's crossing you. What's crossing you is the Five of Cups. There's a loss in this energy of this card where, in a lot of the artwork, two of the cups are still upright, kind of behind the person, but three of them are knocked over. And the person has a tendency to focus on the parts of the cups that are knocked over and not really focus on the ones that are still upright, which indicates that there's like a little bit more of focusing on the negative than seeing like what's still left over, what you still do have. And so, it's again a lesson on focusing at like, how does this work in my benefit? How can I move forward from this situation, from this loss, in a way that propels me and makes me grow instead of holds me down and gets me feeling a little bit sad or some type of way like that, right? So your advice for the current situation. How do you get out of this little thicket that you're feeling like you're in at some points? The star is a trusting energy. So in most of the decks, the artwork has a picture of a woman and she's pouring out a jug out of both hands. And those represent the sun and the moon, the sort of conscious and subconscious. This is letting go and trusting that there is this sort of greater plan in the universe. And this is interesting because, I talked about karma here. This is a way of sort of cutting through karma. Like, let's say you have a lot of bad karma built up, and maybe it's not even your fault, it's your ancestors or something like that. But there's just a lot that's going on that kind of sucks. Well, there is always an opportunity to completely get rid of it all at once. It's not that you have to spend your entire life earning back all of this good karma. At any point, it can all be let go of in an instant. And it's just a realization, a mind shift, or a mindset shift, where you begin to, instead of feeling as though you have to control the situation or that it's got to turn out a certain way, you sort of give it up and you say, I'm going to trust that everything is working, in my benefit. And you can focus on it that way too. It's almost as if I could wrap it up in a single phrase, the energy of this card would be that I believe the universe is conspiring, the entire universe is conspiring in my favor. And if you sort of keep that feeling, that energy, it gets rid of all this problem here. And it kind of happens in ways that you wouldn't always expect. Like sometimes you just instead of worrying about something, or like putting a lot of effort into one situation, you kind of realize, well, hey, that whole situation is a little bit unnecessary if I really step back and think about it. And letting go of it, even though you think you wanted it, letting go of it kind of takes a huge load off of you, and it frees up all of this energy, which allows you to devote that energy to other more important parts of your life. And that can just make you have this surge of growth and energy, and just make you feel like that's what was missing the entire time. So pay attention in this situation to the things that you're putting a lot of effort and thought into that aren't really serving you. It's time to sort of to let go of those things, not necessarily to mourn them, but to just to realize that some things not working out, some things not happening is actually better for you in the long run. So does that make sense for you, Melissa? Great, great. I am so happy. It's pretty interesting. Since I've started doing these live readings, I really haven't had any negative feedback on knock on wood. So, and that's another lesson in trust. So, Myra, thank you. I do my best. So, if you would choose a deck for me. And if you enjoy, I do on my channel have, hello Kadir, I do on my channel have a lot of other pre-recorded videos, tarot readings. I do monthly, number 3, great. I do monthly tarot readings for each star sign, and I also do lots of little specialty readings here and there when I feel like it. I'll do new moon and full moon readings and love readings, all sorts of things. Pick a card. I like those. They're fun. Pick a card. They give a little bit of input to the watcher, which is always a nice thing to do. I'm not trying to control anyone. Although the zodiac general readings tend to be pretty applicable just in general, because I focus a little bit more broadly when I do a general reading, and it seems to work out. So check those out. Am I saying it right? Is it Myra or Mara? Myra? Okay. So let's divide this into 3 piles, and you can choose where you'd like me to draw from. Number 3. Okay. So, current situation. What's crossing you or influencing you? Okay. And advice for the current situation. Justice again. Justice has been coming up. Justice has been coming up a lot. So, advice, or I'm sorry, current situation. What's going on with you here? We have a 7 of coins. So, 7 of coins, there's been a lot of work put into something, and you're kind of at a point where you're expecting this payoff. And it's, I like to, if I could encapsulate the energy in an idea, it would be where you are perhaps growing a crop or something like a farmer would, and you are watching it grow, and it's not quite to the point where it's ready to be harvested yet, but a lot of love and care and everything has been put into this. So it's kind of just watching it grow, watching it happen. And it's usually, there's almost always 2 figures in this card and all of the different artwork who are watching it together. So an energy of like a collaborative experience, is here. So getting ready to reap the benefits of something, or harvest something that's not quite there yet. So what's crossing you or influencing you? The Nine of Wands, and this is a little bit of a he's kind of a fighter. He's aggressive. He has been through some things, and so there is sometimes a little bit of a, I don't want to say like a PTSD, but something more along those lines, where he's a little hesitant to let people in, or to be open and trusting. And so this card, in a advice sort of a situation, would be asking you to kind of open your heart up a little bit, that you've been through some of these tough times, but now it's time to let go and to enjoy some of those fruits of your labor, right? So this is what's crossing you or what's influencing you. So it may be that you're kind of stuck in this this fight mode, or not necessarily fight. It doesn't have that. It's got a more positive energy than a fight, but it is a defensive type of a state, right? So it's a let your guard down. It's time to let your guard down, right? So the advice card here for you, you have Justice, and this again is, I was talking about karma with this card a lot. It's the idea that things are going to work out in the way that they are supposed to. So in other words, I get the feeling that you've put quite a bit of effort in a good way into what's going on here, and that effort is not just going to miraculously disappear, right? It's still there. So you can kind of let your guard down a little bit and shift your focus to other aspects of your life. And it's going to be okay. It's going to turn out okay, because if you've been diligent, if you put the work in, and you have done what you're supposed to, you have a lot less reason to worry than you did when you first start out. Because when you first start out, think about, like, a seed is very delicate. A seedling is even more delicate. At least a seed has like a protection. But in that first initial state, when you're getting things growing, yes, you have to be a lot more protective. But then eventually you can let it breathe a little bit. You can take a sigh. And this Justice is kind of what is protecting that investment in the long run. So there are systems in place that are going to sort of look out for your concerns for you, and so you don't have to be really aggressive about it. You know what I mean? And that's going to invite a little bit more of a fulfilling and pleasant experience into your life, right? So how does that feel for you? Is that going kind of making sense? Yeah, makes sense. Good, good. A lot of times, I see this one was a little bit more specific. A lot of times they're more general. Sometimes they're very specific, and I'm like, well, this is a really specific thing I'm talking about here. I don't know if I'm hitting home or not. But I try to trust it, and I would rather somebody just come back and say, well, it's not really matching up with me, than for me to block or to try to hesitate and make it more broadly appealing. So if it's a specific message, I'm going to give you the specific message. You're very welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed. Would anybody else like a reading? Or aside from the readings, I am happy to just answer any general inquiries or questions. If what's been on your mind, you'd be surprised at the answers that I have. Or if you need somebody to talk to. So kind of came back into your life, huh? That's a that's always a interesting situation, and the longer. Oh, you think you're gonna do it? Oh, paranoid. Hmm. Well, was this a person you felt that you could trust at the time? 50-50. Ooh. Well, definitely be careful. If that's the case, maybe give him a few hoops to jump through, if you know what I mean. So, give him an opportunity to prove himself a little bit. You don't have to go rushing in. Don't at any point feel that just because somebody is giving you attention that they deserve your attention. It's not that simple, right? It has to be a good quality of attention. And, it can be difficult, especially sometimes if we're in a vulnerable space where we have been maybe craving some attention or been feeling lonely or something like that. It can kind of provoke you to jump at any opportunity a little bit more quickly. So, in that kind of a situation, you got to take a step back and analyze, well, do I really feel like this is a good idea, or am I kind of just bored? Right? That kind of thing. So, yeah, but you seem to have your head on straight for sure. I think you are. I wouldn't call you paranoid. I wouldn't say that. I would not claim that for yourself either. I think that if you're at 50-50, yeah, we can definitely ask. So, would you choose a deck? One, two, or three? Number two. All right, let's give it a shuffle. See what kind of advice the cards give. We're going to break this pile up into three separate piles, and if you would please just choose one of those, and we will draw from it. Third one. Okay. So, situation. And what's crossing you? Interesting. And we have advice for the current situation. Okay, so, off the bat, I'll just go ahead and say, this doesn't look very positive to me. It doesn't look great. We have, for your current situation, the Ace of Coins, but in the reverse. So, normally the Ace of Coins, this is a new physical or financial opportunity. In the reverse, it can mean kind of a downfall, a pitfall, right? Instead of a windfall, it's a pitfall. So this could be that, there's one of two ways to interpret that, I think, for you here. And that is one of them, either you're feeling a sort of a lack and that's propelling you in the situation, or the situation is not a good opportunity in the physical realm. And it's not necessarily just financial. It could be that the person has come back into your life because there's something he wants out of you. But it also could be, like I said, that you're following a lack in your life, and that's sort of what's leading you in this situation. So it could be both. It could be either or. It could be both. So that's what I'm getting for the current situation. What we have for what's crossing you is the Five of Swords. So there's a conflict in what you want and what he wants. So there's definitely something is not quite matching up. It now again, I don't like to tell people that the futures are set in stone and everything. And while this is a very contiguous reading, I always want to put a disclaimer in there. I don't know who this person is really, so it could be more innocent of a disagreement between what you want and what he wants. But it seems as though there's a little bit of you're not on the same page. And so at the very least, what's going to be required here is for you to have some conversations and find out how to get on that same page. I would suggest that before any sort of meeting in person, particularly if he is demanding about meeting in person. That's going to be a red flag for you, because if he's not even willing, if he's not even willing to sort of kind of just to have a conversation or get on your page, that's definitely a red flag. So there's a little bit of a difference in what you guys have in mind here. So what we have for your advice for the current situation, this is the Two of Swords in the reverse. This picture is pretty stark. This is a person who feels kind of like in between a rock and a hard place. She is feeling the need to be defensive, to defend herself. She doesn't know what direction it could come from. So to me, the whole thing here screams for some more information. There's a little bit too much mystery going on right now. So you're going to need definitely some more information in this situation before you can actually choose a direction. And I don't think I'm telling you something that you don't already know there, but it's pretty clear that it's not going to be a good decision to just sort of rush into that. And again, I don't think you're being paranoid. You're being smart. You really are. Swords in this situation, procrastinating it. Well, and it may be that it's just not what you need right now. Do you need to force it, or just let it be? Let what happens happens. Did that help a little? Is that a little bit of clarity for you there? Yeah. Great. Yeah. Yeah, the corona. I don't want him to give you that. Or something worse. Yeah. Yeah. Now, I never recommend people stay closed off to that type of energy of something, coming back into your life. But, you know, just be vigilant. We'll put it that way. A lot of times I get very clear messages to just like let go. But in this kind of a case, it's suggesting to be a little more vigilant. Anastasia, would you like one of my readings? You're very welcome. And yes, you may ask a question. Absolutely. Yeah, I will. Okay. Brian's intentions. Okay. Would you like to choose a deck for me? Number 3, my favorite. Okay. Sure, Melissa. Yes. Let me get Anastasia here. And then we will get to you. It just takes practice. Start with a smaller number of cards and then work your way up. Also, wouldn't recommend learning on a valuable tarot deck or something like that. Just get yourself some cheap cards, some cheap playing cards. It's very fun. All right, so I'm going to divide this into 3 piles. If you will select which one of these piles you would like me to draw from. Number 1. Okay. So, this is the current situation. And this is what's influencing or crossing you. And this is the advice. Okay, so for the current situation, the Chariot here. Chariot is kind of there's a resistance to move on to this new part of your life, or the Chariot is about very much mastering the elements of choice of light and dark, good and bad, and all this sort of thing, and moving forward into this success, which kind of ushers in a new phase in your life. So in the original artwork, there's a guy, he's on a chariot and he's headed out away from his home. He's ready to move on outside of his comfort zone and get into a new kind of a place. So in regards to Brian here, I feel as though there's a resistance for you to get into this situation because maybe you're thinking about, well, maybe he's out for the wrong thing or something like that. And it's seeming to me like there is an opportunity for you to kind of grow and explore those avenues that you're in. You don't want to put the cart before the horse, right? So a lot of times people express themselves, especially when getting into relationships in the first time. There's this sort of idea that people have about how they're supposed to treat each other, how they're supposed to act. And it could be that this might be, it may be read the wrong way with you. It may be that he would be open to a relationship, but it's kind of it's not necessarily the energy that he's putting out there. He's kind of maybe feels like he should act a different kind of way. To be frank, pretty much every guy in this country anyway has a history of watching a lot of porn. And I'm not just saying that. They actually did a study and they tried to go around and figure out, how much porn college kids were watching, and they tried to find a control group of people who don't watch porn on a regular basis, and they could not find any males who did not regularly watch porn. So it's kind of a problem, right? And this has it's become an excuse for guys to sort of, tickle their fancy by going down that whole fantasy road instead of actually having to work through these things in real life. So they come to have these weird ways of expressing themselves and thinking that they're supposed to act. And it can be kind of confusing at sometimes. But what I'm getting from that, it doesn't necessarily mean that the guy is like, just out to get in your pants, so to speak. It could very much be that there is this sort of an interest in a type of a relationship or something like that. But I'm also seeing that what's crossing you here is the Queen of Cups, which is you have this sort of balanced emotion. You are interested in kind of keeping yourself level and not thrown out of balance in a certain way. So it's kind of telling me here that it may be that you need to ask yourself, where can you take some risks a little bit here and there? Where can you throw yourself out of balance a little bit, but without compromising your emotional or physical health? You know what I mean? Can you take a few chances and let a few things go, not, detach yourself from the outcome just a little bit and just sort of enjoy what's going on. So that is the energy that I'm getting from the situation. So I think that what that means is if he's not interested in a relationship, that's not necessarily the worst thing for you. But it's really going to depend on, can you kind of detach yourself from that outcome? But I think it's going to be necessary for you to detach yourself from that outcome if you want this sort of a relationship, because people are very primed not to want to plan something out. They want to feel like it's just happening spontaneously and that sort of thing. So it may be that sort of aloof energy is what propels the situation forward for you. Now, what you have in your advice card, you have the Eight of Cups in the reverse. So it can mean that you've been sort of a little bit of just avoiding certain aspects of life. You kind of have just said, well, I want to glide past that. It may be out of feeling that things might not work out right, or feeling like things are hard or awkward or things like that. But so you just kind of take off. This little guy, he's kind of just like, I'm out. I'm not interested. I'm leaving. So this can be kind of working against you a little bit because all these things are a part of life. So don't be too concerned with people's intentions and things like that, but let them prove it to you a little bit. And you can be smart. You don't have to be taken advantage of. And there's a fine line there, and it's very difficult to walk. I had to learn that myself, but you want to be able to kind of go with the flow a little bit and see where things go. And I'm definitely not getting get out while you still can kind of a vibe from this. I definitely think that a relationship is a possibility in this situation. But I think what's going to be the primary determining factor is the attitude that you bring into it. So does that make sense? Yeah. You're very welcome. Okay, Melissa, it is your turn. So, and guys, thank you very much for watching. This has been a lot of fun, but I think this one... Hello, Haley. How are you? Well, I was about to say this will be my last one, but if you would like, you were here before the words left my mouth, so... So, Melissa, if you would like to choose a deck, this is 1, 2, and 3. Number 2. Anything specific on your mind? Who stole your mother's money? Interesting. Now, that is a very specific question, so I don't know how much help I'll be for that one, but I can perhaps give you some general advice. No, yeah, that question. Yeah, Melissa, that's Haley's question. We'll get to that after you. Melissa, did you have any specific concerns or question? Or did you just want some general? What's going on in the love life? Okay. So I'm going to divide this into 3 piles. You go ahead and pick a pile. Number 3. Okay. All right. So this will be your situation. This is what's affecting you or crossing you. And here is the advice card. Okay. So current situation as the Queen of Swords. So you have done a lot of thinking and internalizing, and you've got your head on straight for sure. I think you know what you want, and you know how to get it, right? You're pretty good at this. But what we have crossing you here is the 3 of Wands. So 3 of Wands is, this person, I like this artwork because I think it's perfect. The person is looking out at the ocean. She's a surfer. She wants to go out there and ride the wave. But she hasn't actually taken, or she's not in the water yet. She's still on the beach. She's still out there looking. But, also she's not at home. She's not laying on the couch. She has made up her mind about what she wants. She just has to basically get out there and do it. But, it's a great positive energy because the ball's already rolling. So I think what you already know is, what you want, right? What you're interested in, what you want to happen. So it's really just a matter of getting out there and doing it, right? So what your advice card is saying, though, you have the 10 of Wands in the reverse. 10 of Wands, a lot in each section of cards, in each suit. I'm sorry, I don't know why I couldn't say that. In each suit of cards, there is a journey that occurs from the ace all the way through the 10. And when you get to the 10, it's sort of a completion of cycles. And it's, in the case of the coins and in the cups, it's a very positive thing. It's great. With the 10, you kind of have a little bit of a different story. With the 10, it's the realization that there is always more action to be done, right? If you're not dead, there's always more to be done. So wands are all about action and making things happen, willpower. And so there is no real end to that quest. And the only thing that can really happen is that you can end up feeling over encumbered. You can end up feeling like there's too much to do, too much going on. In the reverse here for your advice, this is saying, make sure that you don't take on too much. So it may be that this person, even though you know what you want with them, it may be that there's a lot that's going to weigh down on you. It may be kind of for the better, the way that things are right now. But then again, I'm not going to say that that's set in stone because you have a choice here. So a lot of people get a lot of satisfaction in life from taking the road less traveled, from taking a difficult road. And so it seems like I have, hey, how are you doing? It seems like I have met a lot of girls who over the years have gone for guys that weren't, strictly speaking, nice or good to them or something like that. And I always kind of was fascinated about why would they keep choosing these sort of hard cases? Why did they spend so much time devoting themselves to somebody who didn't really seem to be worth it to me? And it kind of, the common thread was they got a lot of fulfillment out of that. They got a lot of fulfillment out of uh, being kind, even though nobody else thought they deserved it, right? Like everybody needs somebody, right? So there's definitely some redeeming qualities in making that kind of a choice or taking that kind of a path in life. But it's really something that ought to be done, I think, from personal experience. I think it ought to be done consciously. I think you ought to know why you stand for what you stand for, and being able to express that is really the important part, because what happens is it's one thing for you to deal with the difficult person, right? It's one thing for you to deal with them. It's another thing for you to deal with everybody else who is sitting there like kind of trying to break your relationship down, because a lot of times it's out of a good feeling. They think that you deserve more, but they're kind of like breathing a lot of negative energy into it. So it can be very cumbersome. It can be very hard to sustain this whole thing when everybody is just dumping their negative energy on it. So that's something that you also have to keep in mind. It's I don't know how to get around that. I don't know if you can. It's just when people care about you, they want the best for you, and they want you to want the best for you as well. So it kind of turns out to be a little bit more trouble than it's worth. Most of the time. But again, I can't tell you, it's not set in stone. I'm not your puppet master. You have a choice as to what you want to pursue, you know? How did that feel? Is that pretty accurate for you? Great. Awesome. Hello, Adelaide. Okay, Haley, there is not a list right now. I am going to have to go soon, but let's see if we can quickly get a couple more in real quick. So, Haley, I don't know if we can get quite that specific as you might want, but we can see if we can get you some general where to start looking, or some kind of an idea if you would like to pick a deck. And she may have left. Okay, I don't think she's here. I can't actually see the people that are here, which is not very convenient. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, I can. Yeah, Haley has left. So next, I guess, was Ja. Would you like to pick a deck? Yes, Adelaide, you may as well. Let me get Ja really quick. And number 3. Okay. Thank you. A good man, there is no such thing. No, I'm playing. Let's see what we come up with the cards here. So I'm going to divide this into 3 decks, and if you will choose 1, 1, 2, 3. Number 2. All right. So current situation. What's crossing you? Ooh. And your advice. All right. So current situation is Queen of Cups. You're in a very balanced place, very mature place. I can definitely see that need for a good man. The good thing about, so bad news and good news. Bad news is, I kind of was joking. I'm kind of not. There aren't a whole lot of good men, and they are hard to find. It's not just your imagination. There's nothing wrong with you or anything like that that's causing you not to find it. It's a lot to sift through out there. But the great news is that you're in a great place to be able to see it or to know it when you see it. Right. So there is going to be a little bit of compromise that has to come on, because there's definitely going to always be something that irks you. And I think the best advice for you in this situation is to find a way to align with something that irks you in a sort of good way. Something that kind of presses your buttons, but in a way that is sustainable, in a way that doesn't drive you up the wall. You know what I mean? So what's crossing you is the devil. And the devil, this is, desires and temptations and things like that are, they're inevitable. So it's kind of it's a part of life. There's a reason this card is in the deck, right? There is definitely a good aspect of this. And, one way I like to put it, a lot of people are afraid of the devil. And I don't think that's necessary. I think if you can recognize that the devil is kind of always pointing you toward areas that you need to work on, areas that you might have some sorts of weaknesses. It's kind of that little voice in the back of your head that says, I'm going to get you. So if you can kind of follow that a little bit without being too afraid, it can kind of point you in the direction you need to grow and to find a little bit more of a path of development and that kind of thing. So the way this is looking toward me, it's that, there's going to be some scoundrels out there, but do some hard looking on what you can put up with and what you won't put up with. You need to sort of at this point formulate your boundaries and put some effort into thinking about what are the characteristics that you want. And so the benefit is, I don't know if you've ever heard of the law of attraction, but there's this idea that focusing on what you want has a way of manifesting it. And so a lot of people get trapped in this cycle where they start thinking about what they don't want instead of thinking about what they do want. And so they keep manifesting more and more of that. They sort of just keep calling exactly what they're trying to avoid to them. So this is a situation where you don't want to get caught up on that. You don't want to get caught up on what you're not looking for, but really kind of figure out what you are looking for. And just remember, you got this balanced perspective. So just remember that everything has sorts of consequences. I think this is, there's a lot of room for discovery here. There's a lot of room for you to sort of feel out what you're going to like or experiment a little bit, and without getting too hot and heavy with any one particular option. So, don't feel like you have to be trapped by somebody, that they're always going to be holding it over your head, or something like that. Maintain that sort of independent space where I'm in the market. I'm in the market, and you may not have what I want. That kind of thing. So it's going to be best for you to keep them eating out of the palm of your hand type energy. So what your advice for the current situation is the Seven of Coins. So this is to keep your thoughts on the pot. This is always keep your thoughts on the positive. So there's an energy here of you put a lot of work in, and you're sort of waiting for it to pay off, but it's not quite there yet. You're not ready to pick the fruit, but you're watching it grow, and you're excited about it, right? And you're anxious about, like, when is this going to happen? When is this going to come to fruition? And it's definitely, it's in the roots. It's got good roots. So it's just really a matter of having the patience to do things the right way, to follow the procedure. You don't want to pick the fruit too early, or it'll go bad, right? So it's about letting things kind of happen in a structured and kind of on its own time. So that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling like, be open, but make sure that you're not focusing too much on what you don't want. You definitely want, if you got to, make a list about, these are the qualities I'm looking for, and then go back through that list and say, okay, is there anything here I can compromise on? Is there anything here that I don't really need? And then, take one or two things off the list, and then really focus on, what are you looking for? And then when you talk to people, when you meet people, ask yourself, do they check the boxes? And you'll sometimes really be surprised. Sometimes you've been overlooking an option that's been kind of like right there in your face the whole time, because you were, again, focusing on the wrong thing. You were focusing on some aspect that you didn't like, and you didn't realize, well, hey, I can deal with that, really. Because on the other side, it brings me a lot of things I do want. How's that feel for you? Pretty good? Absolutely. You're very welcome. Adelaide, are you still here? It is your turn. Absolutely. Okay, would you choose a deck for me? Middle. Okay. Do a couple shuffling here. I think this is probably going to have to be my last one. I need to give my wife some attention. Oh, look at that. We all fail sometimes. But I do have a lot of videos on my channel, a lot of general readings. I do detailed general readings each month for each star sign. So please check those out. You can get a lot more surprisingly specific information even than this personal 3-card reading. Woo. All right. Who's coming in? Let's just leave it at that and see what we come up with. Okay, I'm going to divide this into 3 decks. If you would choose one of these for me to draw from. Number 3. Current situation. And this is what's crossing you. And this is your advice for the current situation. Okay. A little bit different reading here. So, Wheel of Fortune. This represents a sort of a randomness sometimes, but also just like it's the karmic wheel of life that things come, things go up, things go down, hot and cold, that kind of thing. There's cycles, all these cycles to life. And in the reverse, it could be that maybe this is something you're kind of resisting. You want to feel maybe a little more sense of control or something. But there's going to be a lot of exhilaration for you and fulfillment in life by sort of letting what happens and to kind of feel that randomness a little bit. Let's see. Let's move forward and see if we can get a little more clarity on that. But what's crossing you, the energy that is influencing you, is the 9 of Coins. This one, this is a successful person. She's really got what she needs and everything, but she's not really quite in the end of that sort of physical or can be, coins always deal with the physical. Usually it's got more of a financial type of an aspect, but not always. So this could be that, you've got the stuff, right? You've got the looks, the situation is ripe, but there's a little bit of a daydreaminess about this. So it's kind of like you're maybe your head stuck in the clouds about thinking about what's possible instead of like actually putting action behind it, which is what really drives home the whole situation to kind of like make it unfold the way that you're wanting to. It requires a little bit of focus and push right on the end instead of, sitting back and daydreaming or fantasizing and thinking about that kind of thing. So there's this need for you to kind of pull out of this wondrous place, this like, daydreaming keeps coming to mind. So there's a need to pull back from that kind of an energy and get a little bit more into action. Now, advice for the current situation here, you have the 9 of Wands. Now, this has a kind of energy of like maybe being afraid to get hurt. This guy, he's been beat up a little bit here. He's had his feelings hurt. He has been in a fight, right? So there's a range of interpretations here, but one way or another, this guy's a little bit hesitant to be hurt. He's guarded. He's a little bit, and rightfully so in a way, because things have happened. But the idea at this point is that you've matured enough to kind of know how to avoid these situations. You have a good head on your shoulders, but it's going to be a matter of keeping it out of the clouds and focused on what's going on around you, which is going to prevent you from having to worry about this so much. So being focused and present and in the current situation solves kind of both problems at once, because it gets you more involved in the process that's going on around you, this wheel of life that happens. You kind of get more with the program and join the dance, we'll put it that way. And along with that, you also have the attention on the current situation, allows you to know how to keep yourself safe and how to navigate the situation in a way where you don't end up getting hurt, right? So it's kind of you solve both problems by learning to focus on what's going on right in front of you instead of just constantly thinking about the future and thinking about what's going to happen, and just bringing your focus or back to what's happening right now, what's happening in front of me, and how can I derive pleasure, enjoyment, and all of those things out of the current situation instead of just thinking about where's it going. Does that make sense? Absolutely. Happy to help. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thank you everybody for watching. I think this is probably going to do it for me tonight. But I always enjoy this. And again, please check out my channel, subscribe, like, and I have all kinds of general readings. I do monthly general readings for each sign, for each star sign. And those get surprisingly dense information in them. And so that can help you out quite a bit if there's any additional guidance that you're looking for. I also have some other, like a love reading and a couple other pick a card readings and whatnot. But I enjoyed it very much. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. I tend to do these things on the weekends. I had an extra day off this time, but yeah, on the weekends, look out for these live readings for free. And I'll see you guys next time.